What's up, guys? It's time to learn some economics. This lecture is going to be over Module 27, and in this lecture, we are going to describe the functions of the Federal Reserve System and the primary tools that they use to influence the economy. Now, the functions of the Federal Reserve System, they provide financial services to banks. They supervise and regulate banking institutions. They maintain the stability of the financial system. And lastly, the Federal Reserve conducts monetary policy. All right, now, how the Fed functions, all right, there's two boxes there. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to, in one side, write that they conduct monetary policy, and then the other is regulations that they do. Okay, so then the tools of monetary policy I'll circle for you right here. As we go through, I'll put a little star next to it so you know to write that down. But basically, the discount window, all right, which, if you remember, is an arrangement in which the Federal Reserve stands ready to lend money to banks that are in trouble. That is a tool of monetary policy. The reserve requirement is a tool of monetary policy. And the reserve requirement is rules set by the Federal Reserve that determines the minimum reserve ratio for a bank. Now, for example, in the United States, the minimum reserve ratio for checkable deposits is 10%. The federal funds market allows for banks that fall short of the reserve requirement to borrow funds from banks with excess reserves. So let's say that, like I use this example in class, but if you have an economy with two banks and one bank is at 8% on reserves when the required reserve ratio is 10%, and you have another bank that's at 12%, well, the bank that's at 12% can loan the first bank that extra 2% overnight so they can meet their reserve requirement. Then the first bank will pay them back the next day plus a little bit of interest. So that's the federal funds market. The interest rate is the federal funds rate on that type of thing. All right. And like I said, the discount window is where the Federal Reserve stands ready to lend money to banks. Federal Reserve is the lender of last resort. All right. The discount rate is the interest rate on loans that the Fed charges to these banks. Okay. Now, lastly, open market operations. The principal tool of monetary policy is the most frequently used tool of monetary policy. That's where the Fed can increase or reduce the money supply by buying government debt from banks or selling government debt to banks. All right, and basically what that does is it either puts money into banks or it takes money away. So if the Federal Reserve buys U.S. government debt from banks, that will put money into banks. Banks then take that money and loan it out to people. People then go out and buy stuff, and businesses improve, investment spending goes up, consumer spending goes up, and so on and so forth. If they sell U.S. government debt to banks, then they're essentially taking money away from banks, which reduces the amount banks can loan to people, which reduces the amount of stuff people go out and buy, which reduces economic output. All right. Now, just a fun little fact for you: the U.S. taxpayers receive the profits from the Federal Reserve. The Fed keeps some of the interest to finance its operations, but most of it goes to the U.S. Treasury. So, for example, in 2013, the Federal Reserve System received $79.5 billion in interest on its holdings, of which $77.7 billion was returned to the Treasury. The Fed decides on the size of the monetary base based on economic considerations. They don't let the monetary base get too large because they don't want to cause inflation. So, that's it. A lot of it we covered in class already. So, if you have any questions, write it down, and we will go over that in the next class. In the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of your day.